Hey there and welcome to episode 16 of Seenu. This, in case you might have missed it, is the continuation of the guest episode that Flux did, which you can find on his channel. I'm going to include the link in the description in case you haven't seen it, because I'm about to spoil it by showing you the result of his latest video. So let's just take a look, because the amount of detail that he has put on this construction is just, it's kind of mesmerizing. First, before we zoom in, we're going to zoom out just to give you a bit of context to where we are. So this is sort of the main island that we've been working on since episode 14. And this is where, Flux focused his attention. And as you can see right from the bat, there's still quite a bit of work that needs to be done on this island. So we're trying to figure out, working out schedules so that he can come back and basically complete this whole thing. I think that it may even take more than one extra episode for him to complete all of this. I really don't want to touch anything around here, especially because, well, if we zoom in, there's so many layers of things taking place around here. When he was working on this, he showed me on screen share, just pulling apart this massive building and everything that's underneath here, and it's kind of crazy. So I'm really worried about using Move It around this area, because I feel like everything's just going to explode into a million pieces, and it will be super hard to put it back together. This, by the way, this little nook right here, this like sunken restaurant area with the golf carts and everything else, it's by far my favorite part of this build. Not just this little corner, but the surrounding areas, the immediate surrounding areas, with all these like short vegetation, just the meadow grasses, the bushes, the flowers, just everything. It's perfect. Even this little path with the fences around it. I was just thinking of how much I'm just going to be selecting things with Move It here and copying them out of this island and pasting them in my own. There's quite a bit of nature designs that we haven't yet done in this project, and I'm really looking forward to doing them very, very soon. Actually, we're going to talk about that during the time-lapse portion of this episode. But yeah, I mean, just look at the attention to detail all around this area. It really does look like a luxury hotel, and it's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. All these docks with this floating lily pads, which we will actually have to come back to our previous docks and add a few more details similar to what he added here. But yeah, this is great. I couldn't be happier. Thanks so much, Flux, for hosting an episode of Seenu. It's been amazing, and hopefully we can do it again. But let me just show you what we're going to be working on in this episode. And now the frame rate is getting even worse. I tweeted this a couple days ago, but I'm now getting, if I point into this direction, I get about 4 frames per second. So it's great. In any case, at the time of this recording, by the way, I already basically did the entire episode, so I know exactly what I'm going to be building. And in case you're wondering, we're going to be tackling this blocks right here, and we're going to be expanding the city towards this side. So basically, we're going to be filling out this whole area. We're going to have a market, we're going to have a mosque, we're going to have a soccer field, yet another one. In fact, I think we don't have enough mosques. I was just looking at the just Google Maps, and there's mosques like every 3 blocks. So we definitely need to maybe come back and add a few more in other areas. But we'll probably talk about more in detail during the time lapse. One more thing that I wanted to talk about while we're in this real-time view, and we could just, take some time to look at what the future of Seenu will hold. I want to expand the city right about this area, so I'm not going to go beyond this whole area. It's just not going to be blocks and houses, and it's going to sort of gradient into more of a nature path trail situation. There's going to be probably some houses and some farmlands, but for the most part the urban area will finish around here. And I think we're not that far from completing this whole part, maybe another 5 episodes or so. I also want to go back and do a little bit of work on this area, because specifically this middle section right here, this residential neighborhood, doesn't look great. I realized that this design works a little bit better than the ones we were working on here, so I do want to come back and get rid of many of these houses. I feel like we have way too many here. And this design, it's much cleaner. I don't know if you can actually see the difference, but oh, by the way, this is kind of funny and tragic at the same time. You may notice that some of these houses have fences around them and some don't. The reason is, well, they used to have fences, but when I passed the save game onto Flux, we double checked every single DLC and subscribed. He subscribed to my collection and everything else, but we realized that I was subscribed to the Pearls of the East DLC, which is a free DLC that came out like, I don't know, like 6 months ago or so. It's a dumb DLC. Like, I don't think I really even remember that I had it. However, I've been using these bamboo fences all over the place. And of course, Flux wasn't subscribed to that DLC. So by the time I got the save game back, well, all those fences were gone, and I used them quite extensively. You can see here, for example, this is, yeah. I'll definitely have to come back to this area and you know, add a few more of those fences. So there's going to be quite a bit of a maintenance task that will need to be done. But you know, it's still something that I was planning on doing anyways, because the design of the neighborhood has changed so much, specifically in the last 3 or 4 episodes, that I really wanted to come revisit many of these areas anyways. But enough of the chatter. Let's just jump into a time lapse and let's start working on things, shall we? Actually, talking about chatter, there's a couple of things that I have written down here that I want to cover during the beginning of the time lapse, and then we'll go into the actual details of what I'm doing on the screen at each moment in time. For the time being, just so you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm extending the road network just slightly north. North, by the way, is to the right of the screen right now, in case you were wondering. But we're not going to obviously fill all that area with neighborhoods, just a few of these blocks. But I did want to, you know, lay down the foundations for future episodes, like I mentioned, you know, in the intro segment of this episode. But let me first start by telling you, in case you haven't noticed, that last weekend I posted another on the road video from, and this is the first video from my trip to the UK. So it's basically around the island of Mull. In case you were interested, this is in Scotland in the Highlands. So if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you check it out. There's a ton of ideas and inspiration that you can get from that one, or at least that's the idea of that series. So that's it. I'm not gonna keep selling that series. Check it out. Included link in the description. Next on my list is something that's been pointed out by many of you in the previous video that came out on my channel, which is related to the fact that I was having all these issues with, you know, garbage collection and things like that. So I followed your advice. I went ahead and got the No Problems mod by TBB. That well fixes all the problems. I mean, not necessarily fixes the problems, but hides them to some degree. So right now, what's it stands in Seenu, I turned off pollution. I turned off well, basically sewage and garbage collection and a whole bunch of other things that I don't remember. But most of the of the game variables are still there. Like shops still need goods, or we still need police coverage, at least to some degree. So there's still plenty of stuff that it's still required. So the game mechanics are somewhat still there. But for the most part, like I mentioned at the very first episode of Seenu, this is for aesthetic purposes only, so I really don't care about the gameplay of the actual Cities Skylines game. It's a great mod, by the way. I highly encourage you to check it out if you're, a very detail-oriented player and not so much a gameplay player, if that makes any sense. What else on my list? So, so talking about I mentioned this briefly during the intro, but we're working on the mosque right now. This mosque, by the way, has been designed or modeled by King Leno specifically for Seenu. So I want to take this opportunity to thank him once again. He also did the fuel station we featured a couple episodes ago, but He actually worked on the mosque first a while back, and it's taking me this long to actually include it in an episode because I really wanted to like highlight it, put it in like a nice area, just surrounded with beautiful settings. And I couldn't find a spot until today. So I do apologize for the delay, Mr. King Leno, but hopefully I highlighted your model in the best way possible. Probably going to be using this model again in other areas. Like I was saying, there's a ton of mosques around this atoll. In fact, I think this is pretty common with any religion, right? You have temples, churches, synagogues, just everywhere all the time. So it makes sense in certain countries where, there's a majority of one religion to have multiple places of worship. So what I'm probably going to be doing is I have like 3 or 4 other mosque models that are in the workshop, and I want to try to integrate those in the different areas or neighborhoods of Seenu. So stay tuned for that. We're probably going to rework some of the blocks that we already worked on on this current island, which is called Addu. But that's a problem for future Strict Toaster, so you'll have to deal with that. Next on my list is merchandising. So I was talking about this about a month ago, and I recently ordered some sample shirts, basically, from the store. I just wanted to see what the quality was, and the samples that I got were actually pretty good. So I'm already working on the designs and setting up the store and everything else. So hopefully in maybe a week, 2 weeks, that will be up and live, and you're going to be able to, contribute to the channel, basically help support it while getting something in return. I have some really awesome designs that I think you're going to really like too. And obviously I'm going to keep adding more in the future, but I'm going to be posting, by the way, some photos on social media probably in the next couple of days. So in case you want to see how these shirts look like and some of the designs that are coming, make sure to follow me on Twitter and on Facebook. You can find the links in the description. And talking about social media and about things that are going to be happening in the near future. I'm working on a lot of things right now. Not just channel related. Most of them channel related, but there are a few things that are just like personal work and stuff. But the point of this, of me saying this, is because there may be some slowdowns in schedule. I can already tell that Inorama will be, my Planet Coaster series, by the way, will be somewhat delayed in the next couple of days. You won't see episodes as often as they used to be. For those of you who are, the segment of my viewers who are like fans of Planet Coaster, do not worry. I'll make it up to you. I'm actually working on a project that, if it goes well, is going to involve some Planet Coaster awesomeness. So that's all I can say for now. But hopefully that works out well. And of course, I'm not finishing Interim or anything like that. I'm still going to be working on that project, but I really need to prioritize. I only have a certain amount of hours in my life, and I need to dedicate them, or allocate them in the best way I can. And, sometimes I need to sacrifice some things. So if there's not an episode of Seenu on one weekend, or, Planet Coaster doesn't return for a couple weeks, do not fear. Things are still, going to be worked on. I'm not abandoning YouTube or anything like that, but I'm just in general, not just the segment of viewers who like Planet Coaster, but in general, I'm working on a few things that if they work well, you're gonna absolutely love them. So stay tuned for that. I don't want to tease anything else other than that. And what else is on my list? I think that's it. I think we should now talk about what I'm doing on the screen, because I'm already starting the work on this little market. Which before I say anything else, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Taser, because he did a while back an episode where he did a very similar market to the one I'm working on right now. I got a ton of ideas from his build. In case you haven't seen it, I'm going to include the link in the description. He plays, I think I gave him a shout out before, but he does play Cities Skylines to very detailed levels, so I highly encourage you to check him out. And I'm going to include, obviously, the link to the specific episode. And there's going to be so many links in the description of this episode. Hopefully you can remember to include them all. You can let me know in the comments if I haven't. But this is, it's a bit of a farmer's market kind of situation here. I wanted to sort of mix up some of these colorful tents, and we have these fruit stands. So mixing them up with a whole bunch of props, trying to create, something that looks a little bit more realistic and organic and not super repetitive. I think the colors do help a lot, but after a while, it does look a little bit repetitive. So, with the help of the fruit stands and having, those dining patio areas where there's tables and chairs and umbrellas, really does help, break the repetitiveness of the design. Man, I'm all over the place today. It's and I think it's one of these episodes, since I don't have a whole lot of time to make a ton of edits, it's just gonna come out like that. But you said before that you liked it, so hopefully this one is not too distracting. What was I saying? Yes, so I was trying to break, this repetitiveness factor of this market. And of course, I'm just not going to leave those pedestrian paths like that. We're going to be adding a ton of decals to basically cover this whole area, so it does look like an actual, nice little market and not just a concrete slab that was just thrown there. Even though it could totally done that, but it doesn't look very realistic. It does look like it's missing detail. If I leave it just like that. So, I started trying different decals. In this case, I started with that mossy cobblestone, but I didn't quite like it. So I ended up going for the classic, these vanilla looking tiles, just kind of like light brown. And on each sort of connection of these paths, I included, a different pattern so that it didn't look super repetitive either. And also kind of marks where the actual pedestrian path that run underneath are basically taking place. I just didn't want to make this for aesthetics, even though it's like, there's no park or anything inside of it. For a moment, I thought of adding the people park generator, but I didn't have it with me for some reason. I don't know why I don't have it in my collection, but I didn't. So I at least wanted to have surrounding buildings that will basically make the area have, foot traffic quite a bit. We do have a bit of a bus stop over there that we eventually will have to get rid of once we redo the whole bus network thing. But in the meantime, there is, and you're going to see this at the end of the episode during the cinematics, there's going to be quite a bit of foot traffic, like I said. And it does look a little bit realistic. Taser, in his episode, he added people like the vanilla people that you could just plop, and they're static. And, I thought of doing that, but first of all, it's... It really, it's a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't have a whole lot of time to put this one together. But not only that, if you, and this is an issue in general, like if you, realize that you don't like that design, then you're kind of stuck, because getting rid of so many tiny assets, and especially when they overlap with decals and everything else, it's really, really difficult to do maintenance. So I first wanted to see how much foot traffic I was able to generate naturally, because that ultimately looks better than just static people that you can clearly tell that they're just standing there. From far away, on screenshots, they look amazing, don't get me wrong, but ultimately I wanted to have movement in the park, so I decided to skip on adding props of people and instead try to add parks and things so that there is people walking by all the different paths. And I think I managed to achieve that pretty well. On the other side of this market, in a moment, you're going to see me add the first sort of beach resort for locals, which is not strictly aimed at at tourists necessarily. It's like definitely more of a low budget beach side with some with some little cabanas and basically chairs and things like that. You'll see it in a moment. At the same time, I wanted to have a bit of a parking area for the market. It's, very rough kind of parking area for the most part, aimed at bicycles and motorcycles, as you can see while I put, these bike racks. But I also wanted to add a few cars and separate since we're on ground. I never liked it when there's decals on dirt. That doesn't make sense to me. I've seen that quite a bit, in screenshots on Reddit, and I do my best to get rid of those, or if I have no choice but to have decals for parking, I'd rather have concrete and somehow integrated. In fact, we're gonna have that problem again when I put down this beach site, because the asset does have built-in parking lot, and it's sitting on dirt, which just drives me crazy. It makes no sense to have painted lines on dirt. So in this case, since I'm building my own custom parking lot, I just decided to go for the tires that are just kind of sunking into the ground, and thought that looked much better, so I went for it. Changing topics here real quick. So we're going to this other area of the main street where we're having more of a commercial area. I did get some new assets from the workshop just to have a bit of more variety, and I started clearing those trees over there, just so that I can put another soccer field, or football field, and I guess many of you will call it that. It's definitely not one of the largest fields that we have. This is probably for 10 players, I'm assuming, given the size of the thing. And it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, like a neighborhood soccer field. I used to play every Sunday on things like this, on fields like this. So this brings back some memories. But I think it came out great. It's actually I didn't fill it to the brim with details. It's actually pretty simple, pretty laid back. You'll see. I mean, it obviously has details, but it's not like overwhelming with decals and things. It looks pretty clean. It looks like well maintained. I don't want everything to be super messy around, Seenu. You do have some nice parts of the island, so it's good to find sort of a balance of styles, so that not everything looks the same. It's kind of boring watching Cities Skylines series that it's all the same style repeated over and over again. But in this case, I'm just trying to do something a little bit different. And I guess I gave up on that footage, so I'm back to the market area. And this is, by the way, what I was talking about with this beach site. You can see those parking lots, how they're like on the dirt. That makes no sense. So I went ahead and painted, a bit of concrete texture with surface painter. And I even left those imperfections there on purpose. I was planning on, covering them with decals in just a moment. You'll see it. There you go. I figure that this, is not probably the most well-maintained road of the whole island, so it does make sense to have some of these roads be a little bit broken. Now, going back to the market here, you can see that I'm actually adding my own custom crosswalks. In fact, at this very spot right now, there isn't a real crosswalk, so people won't be crossing. But I figured, having a transition between the mosque or one of the entrances of the mosque and the market makes sense. But just wanted to add an extra bit of a level of detail, specifically on this corner, because this is a bit of a high traffic area compared to the rest of the island, having so many people coming to this market doing their shopping, plus the buses that we're gonna have running eventually in better locations than that, and just the amount of shops that are around the area. And going back to this road, as I was mentioning before, I figured, it's not the most well-maintained road, so just went ahead and added a few patches of, broken asphalt and things like that, or even fixes to the asphalt. I figure, that usually makes these segments of road look a little bit more unique than anything else. And look here, I'm actually adding billboards. I think these are vanilla billboards, if I'm not mistaken. But these actually look great. And, they really fit the theme of this warehouse situation that we have there, that big red brick building I don't know exactly what the building does. I think it's an office, actually, if I'm not mistaken. But in any case, I just wanted to add a few more buildings surrounding it. I did spend some time adding lights all over the place. So this whole neighborhood is actually properly lit up. And another thing that I wanted to do is to have a pedestrian path that connect to the market. So similar to what I was saying just a second ago, I wanted, a lot of foot traffic on that market. So I figured this beach asset, I think it's like a tourist thing. It attracts a ton of people. So having two direct connections, two pedestrian path connecting to the market straight up, I think will give that extra, foot traffic that I'm looking for, and it totally did. So you'll probably see it in the cinematics in just a few minutes, as we're actually pretty down close here, but not quite, because we do need to add a few little details of this construction, specifically vegetation. This is mostly what I wanted in this area. I tried many designs, and you're gonna see me leave this and come back later to add even more. But for the most part, we're following sort of the same pattern that we've been working on so far. I wanted to specifically, what you saw me do there, like moving those bushes away from the road. I really do, and I should have done this at the beginning of the series, actually. I do regret that, but I'm trying to keep a clear gap between the road and the sidewalks, even when these types of roads, the concrete roads, don't actually have sidewalks, but people do walk on them. So if I put bushes right, or any sort of vegetation, or even fences right up against the edge of the concrete, people walk through them, and that doesn't look great. At first I didn't mind all that much, but the more I see it, the less I don't like it. So the last couple of episodes, probably the last 5 episodes, I've been trying to avoid doing that and leaving a clear gap so that people can, freely walk without having to go through ginormous ferns or fences or anything like that. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to redo many of the neighborhoods, just to have, clear paths and, just have a cohesive design pattern across all of our neighborhoods. Now over here, I'm finalizing the, aesthetic part of these roads. These are mostly going to be dirt roads. So I'm just, copying and pasting the same treatment that I've done before and trying to best transition these roads with the concrete roads. I wanted to, I'm using a mixture of decals so that they blend in a little bit better. Especially, when you see dirt roads like this, cars usually carry some of the dirt or mud into the pavement. So there is a bit of a gradient there, and I try to achieve that with decals to the best of my, to the best of my skills. There's still, I need to figure out a good transition between those concrete curves and the rest of the paved roads in particular. I haven't quite figured out that yet, or a design that I actually like, but hopefully soon we'll come up with something that makes sense. If you do have screenshots or things like that that someone else has done that you think could work, please do let me know in the comment section. But this is pretty much it for this episode. I'm actually adding the final touches here. I wanted to have a bit of a flower garden, but for the most part, this beach asset looks pretty amazing on its own. And only adding just a few little bushes, and we're gonna add some trash cans and dustbins and things like that. That's pretty much all that's needed to make this look amazing. And with the music playing in the background, it's time to put an end to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving this video a like. That's very much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel and haven't already, I want to encourage you to go click the subscribe button. That way you're notified immediately after one of my videos comes out. In the description, you're going to find all of the links that I mentioned before, plus the link to the full playlist in case you might have missed an episode, including Fluxus. It's going to be there as well. But that's all I have to say for now. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you in the next one.